So at the end of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, there's that beautiful scene where Tina and Newt say goodbye to each other, but we know it's really a see you soon.
Yeah.
What happens afterwards?
He says he's going to come back with his book, but he doesn't do that.
And through no fault of his own, because he's a pretty persistent guy, and he's been trying he's had 5 attempts to get a travel permit, but the ministry is locked down on him. Meanwhile, she is quite fickle, so she just gets a new boyfriend, thinks like Newt's just gone. What?
I think that he's married Lita. So then I think I have to move on. Devastated. She tries to move on.
As you can see, there's some serious miscommunication that's gone on here in this long-distance relationship.
So when Dumbledore sets you on a quest to go to Paris, you're not just going there because Dumbledore wants you to go, right?
You're right. I mean, I think Newt's known Dumbledore for long enough to know that he's being manipulated or being, the truth is being muddled, and so he doesn't want to go purely for Dumbledore, but when he finds out that Tina's there, he's off in a shot, so
so
obviously.
Okay. Starting to make it right.
Speaking of Dumbledore, what do you think Jude brought to that character?
He's so brilliant. We were so thrilled just when we heard he got the part.
He's such an amazing actor because he has, and so perfect for that part because he has this mixture of he's sort of iconic, has a gravitas, but he also has this like playful, mercurial edge. And I'll never forget doing that first scene with him in which he turns around on the top of St. Paul's, and in one look, he managed to capture all of the sort of, I felt like some of the complexities of an essence of Dumbledore.
He's got a good twinkle in his eye too, which I think is a classic Dumbledore.
The essential Dumbledore twinkle.
Yeah, exactly.
We found out about Johnny and Grindelwald at the end of the last movie. This film starts with him escaping. That opens up a whole new series of events, right? I just felt
some intense Makusa shame.
Yeah.
Yep, he screwed that up.
Yeah. Right, that opens a whole new
kind of worms.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Sure does.
And I mean, at the beginning of this film, he's being taken back to Europe to be tried in the European sort of wizarding courts, and there's that moment when I'm like, don't let him go! Seriously, the most powerful wizard, what are you thinking? And the president, she's not up for it, but they don't heed to her words.
And Johnny plays him in a very seductive way, in a not like I'm the villain kind of way at all. Like, no, I have a purpose, and
he's recruiting, and carrot, not a stick, right? He's got to seduce them, and it's quite masterful the way he does it, and the language of it too, to say, you decide. He makes them feel. I mean, and someone did draw the comparison to Dumbledore that they're both very good at making people feel like they've made a decision for themselves. And that those people are people to be a little bit wary of. Yeah.
What would you like to add about Johnny's performance?
I just never forget. I only have one scene with him really, which is this sort of operatic climactic scene that takes place in the amphitheater, and he's having to rally thousands of wizards, and so there were thousands of supporting artists there that day, and it's rhetorical, this speech, and it's big, it's like theatre in some ways, and yet you're playing to a camera that is so close, and that mixture between like playing out to the crowd and gently the delicacy with which I was completely, it was a sort of masterclass for me.
Yeah.
And what's Credence's role in all this? He's almost like a loose cannon that could go anywhere.
He's a troubled kid.
He's a troubled kid who doesn't know his history, who doesn't know his past, and has had severe damage. And his place in this film is, it's the core of the film, is who is he? What is his history? And if you're not aware of where your roots are, what that does to you. Yeah,
which is, and only amplified by the fact that he has this incredible magical ability and no understanding of it. And poor guy. Better him than me.
We have to talk about JK, and the truth of the matter is, I feel this movie's even more choral than the previous one. More characters are coming in, each one will be more developed. We're learning more about them. The links with the whole Harry Potter universe are coming.
Expanding, yes.
What do you feel about that?
I just love her boldness to keep it so it's so vast. The canvas on which she's painting is so gigantic, and rather than sort of honing in, and she really trusts in herself to create this incredibly elaborate world, but in which she never shortchanges the characters or one's audience or the audience's empathy to the characters. And I think that's kind of
Somehow she manages that brilliantly, to expand the world but keep it feeling grounded and intimate and specific. And I do think it's that specificity that gets people's imaginations going. The idea that there's a logic to this world, that it makes, there's a set of rules in France, there's a set of rules in, you know, and a system in the UK, and a system in the States, and that all around the world, there are these cultural differences within the wizarding communities. And I just find that always really fascinating to learn about.
And then, of course, we have the actual Fantastic Beasts. Yeah. Some return, some new ones, right, Eddie?
Some are back. The scene stealers are back. Yeah. The Niffler's back, and the Nifflers had baby Nifflers, which I mean,
super cute.
They're so freaking cute. Oh my god! Yeah. And they're tiny little things, but they're wreaking havoc for Newt. Then we have the Zhou, which is the Chinese creature that is like a sort of cat meets dragon, that is sensationally powerful, can travel 1,000 miles in a day, but also when he's like playing with Newt, like a kitten playing with a sort of ball of wool, is just like the sweetest thing imaginable. So.
And then we see more about your relationship, which I also think is at the heart of this whole story. Yeah. What is it about Tina that Newt likes, and what is it about Newt that Tina likes?
Aww.
What is it that he doesn't like about Tina? He's sort of
well done.
I think Tina's an extraordinary character. She's formidable. She is vulnerable. She is. She's incredibly caring. She's sort of looked after her sister in this extraordinary way, despite a tricky upbringing. And she has, even though she's created in the first film this sort of exoskeleton through damage, he can see her. He can see into her, and I think it's just a magnetic connection between them.
Yes, and I think they really kind of are truly kindred spirits, that they recognize the similarity in the other. You know, that he has an area of his life that makes sense to him when he's with his creatures, and that's the safe place in the world he understands. And the broader world is challenging in many ways. Human interactions are challenging. Tina, her work makes sense to her. That's the world in which she thrives, and beyond that, interpersonal relationships quite difficult. And you see it when Queenie and Jacob are at the dinner table with them in the first film. I always thought that that scene told so much about these two. You know, that just with the little quick glances and stuff, they were observing a great deal about the trap they're both in a little bit in human interactions, with these other two are so freely engaging with each other. But that's a comfort for them. And I also think I really don't have to act. It's a wonderful gift. Tina loves his relationship to the creatures, and Katherine, I think it's so beautiful to watch Eddie work with them in the way he does, that I feel like that's something that's very easy to perform, but that I think makes her feel like this is a really, really special wizard.